I didn't know it at the time, but that evening was the last time I'd ever feel like I knew my own life. It started with a simple phone call, one of those calls you never expect to change everything. But when I picked up the phone, the voice on the other end had a tremble to it, a strange hesitation that didn't quite match the usual tone. "Ben, she's not the woman you think she is," the voice said. I didn't know who it was. No name, just a muffled voice. Panic rose in me, but I stayed silent, holding my breath. "She's been seeing someone else," the voice continued, steadying itself. "I've seen it, heard it. It's more than you think." I didn't know what to say. I hung up before I could, but that voice, it lingered in my mind. What had I just heard? The absurdity of it hit me first. I had a good life. Vera and I had been together for 5 years. We built everything together. Our home, our routine, the foundation we thought was unshakable. But deep down, something had always felt off, hadn't it? Little moments where the warmth between us seemed forced, or when she'd laughed too hard at something her coworkers said, her eyes lingering just a little too long on him. I ignored it, of course. Maybe I was paranoid. Maybe I just wasn't good at handling the doubts that crept up. But this was different. I could have brushed it off. I could have ignored the voice, chalked it up to some twisted joke or prank. But the more I thought about it, the more certain I became that I had to find out the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it would make me. So, I did what I thought was the most rational thing. I followed her. The idea of spying on Vera, of sneaking around, felt utterly wrong. I wasn't that type of person. But that night, something inside me snapped. It wasn't just about the phone call anymore. It was about the creeping realization that the life I thought I had was slipping away without me even noticing. And I couldn't bear the thought of being left in the dark any longer. Vera had told me earlier that evening she was going out for drinks with a couple of colleagues after work. No big deal, just an after-hours meeting, she'd said, something that didn't concern me. But as I watched her leave, I couldn't shake the thought that something wasn't right. She had put on a dress I'd never seen before. A dress that hugged her body just a little too perfectly, in a way that made her look unfamiliar. Not that she didn't look beautiful, but there was something almost calculated about it. I waited. It wasn't until I saw her car pull out of the driveway that I made my move. I didn't know where they were meeting, her coworkers or whoever else she was meeting, but I followed. And for the next hour, I drove through the streets, waiting for her to pull into some trendy bar or restaurant. But she didn't. Instead, she turned down an unfamiliar street, leading to a part of the city I didn't recognize. My heartbeat picked up. Was she taking a shortcut? Was I being paranoid again? I tried to calm myself. But then, she pulled into a parking lot. Not a bar. Not a restaurant. It was a hotel. I sat there, my stomach twisting into knots. I told myself to turn around, to just go home, to forget about it. But I couldn't. I couldn't unsee the image of her walking into that hotel, the door closing behind her. I sat there for what felt like forever, my mind racing. The same hotel we had stayed at on our anniversary 2 years ago. The same hotel where we'd promised each other forever. And now she was here, without me, walking through those same doors. What was I supposed to do now? My hands gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. Every fiber of my being screamed at me to turn back, but I couldn't. I needed answers. The truth, no matter how much it hurt. I waited for another hour, maybe longer. It felt like time had stopped, and I was trapped in this strange limbo, unable to move. Every part of me wanted to call her, to ask her what was going on, but I knew if I did, everything would change. The moment I called her, I'd lose the chance to see for myself what was really happening. Then, the moment I had been dreading came. Vera walked out. But she wasn't alone. He was with her boss, the man who had been so present in every conversation, who had made me feel like a shadow in my own life. I watched as they stood outside the hotel, talking. Her boss was leaning in too close, laughing too much, and she was smiling in a way I hadn't seen in months. The way she smiled at him, her hand resting on his arm, it was the kind of smile I hadn't seen directed at me in far too long. My heart sank. I had known, hadn't I? Somewhere deep down, I had always known. But seeing it with my own eyes? That was something else entirely. That was a reality I wasn't prepared for. They hugged. A long, lingering hug that made my chest tighten in a way I couldn't explain. And as she turned and walked back to her car, I felt something inside me break. It wasn't just betrayal. It was something deeper, something I didn't know how to name. It was the loss of everything I thought I knew. She wasn't the woman I thought she was. And I wasn't the man I used to be. I didn't follow her back home. I couldn't. Instead, I sat in my car, staring at the parking lot in front of me. The world felt like it had shifted on its axis, and I was too disoriented to do anything but sit there, paralyzed. What did I do now? Do I confront her? Do I walk away? Do I just act like nothing happened? I couldn't go back to pretending. The truth had already been written, and I couldn't unsee it. I didn't know what to do. Sitting in my car, parked outside that hotel, everything felt surreal. The quiet buzz of the city around me was a distant hum, and I was trapped in this moment, staring at the door where Vera had just walked out with him. I could feel my heart racing, the tightness in my chest growing with each passing second. I thought about everything that had led up to this point, the late nights, the strange texts, the distance between us. But nothing could have prepared me for this. What was I supposed to do now? Confront her? What would I even say? I felt like I was losing control of my own life. I waited a little longer. I wanted to see more. I needed to understand what was really going on, but every part of me wanted to turn and leave. I wanted to forget what I'd seen and pretend like I hadn't just watched the woman I loved walk out of a hotel with her boss, her hand resting casually on his arm. I couldn't. I was already too far in. When I saw them get into separate cars, I snapped out of my daze. Vera's car pulled out first, heading toward the highway. I hesitated for a moment, then made a decision. I couldn't let this go without knowing more. I followed her. The streets felt endless, and the farther I drove behind her, the more my mind raced. Was she going home? Was she planning to meet him somewhere else? As her car took the exit toward the suburbs, I felt like I was watching her slip further and further away from me. What had happened to her? What had happened to us? The person I had been with for years, the woman I had trusted completely, now seemed like a stranger to me. I tried to push back the anger, but it bubbled up, threatening to spill over. I followed her until she turned onto a quiet street and pulled into the driveway of our home. My heart sank. She was home. I parked a block away, watching her walk into the house, her back straight, her posture almost proud. It was like nothing had changed, like I hadn't just seen what I'd seen. Like everything was still the same. But it wasn't. I sat in my car for a while, just staring at the house. What was I supposed to do now? Go inside and pretend everything was normal? Confront her, demand answers? Or should I just walk away and leave everything behind? My mind was a whirlwind, and the more I thought about it, the less certain I became. I knew I couldn't keep living in this limbo, caught between what I thought was happening and what I knew to be true now. The problem was, I didn't know how to move forward. Eventually, I pulled myself together, wiped the sweat off my palms, and got out of the car. I walked slowly to the front door, my mind still racing. Every step felt heavier than the last. As I reached for the door handle, I froze. What was I supposed to say? How was I supposed to look her in the eyes after everything I'd seen? I opened the door. The house was silent. The faint scent of her perfume lingered in the air, but there was no sound of her. No sign of life. My eyes scanned the hallway, the living room, and the kitchen. No Vera. I checked the bedroom. Empty. Panic began to claw at me. Where was she? Had I imagined the whole thing? But then, I noticed something. A faint glow coming from the office, the room where she usually worked late on her projects. I walked toward it cautiously, unsure of what I would find. The door creaked open. Vera was sitting at her desk, her back to me. She was on her phone, typing something quickly. She didn't hear me enter, and for a brief moment, I stood there, watching her. I wanted to say something, to confront her, but the words stuck in my throat. Vera. My voice was almost a whisper, but it felt loud in the silence. She jumped, startled, and quickly shoved the phone into her pocket, as though she had been caught doing something she wasn't supposed to. She turned to face me, her expression unreadable. "Oh, you're home," she said, her voice almost too casual. "I didn't hear you come in. How was your day?" My heart pounded in my chest. I couldn't keep pretending. "What were you doing at that hotel?" I asked, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and confusion. "With him." Her face went pale. She didn't say anything for a moment, and I could see her processing the question. But there was no guilt in her eyes, no shame. Just a cold, calculating look that made my stomach turn. "Ben, She paused, trying to find the right words, but I wasn't waiting for an explanation. I saw you with him." The words came out harsher than I intended, but I didn't care anymore. You can't deny it. You're seeing him, aren't you? She swallowed, then stood up slowly, walking around the desk until she was standing in front of me. Her face softened, but the emptiness in her eyes made my blood run cold. Ben, it's not what you think. She said the words carefully, like she had practiced them in her head 1,000 times. But I wasn't sure I could trust her anymore. What is it then? I demanded, feeling the knot in my stomach tighten. What exactly is it? She took a deep breath, then exhaled slowly. It's complicated. I never wanted to hurt you, Ben. But things changed. They changed long before you even noticed. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I wanted to scream, to demand she tell me everything, but instead, I felt a wave of exhaustion wash over me. This wasn't just about a hotel, or a boss, or some affair. It was about the slow erosion of everything I thought was real, and I was standing in the ruins of it all. I couldn't breathe. The air felt thick, almost suffocating, and the words Vera had just said echoed in my mind like a drumbeat I couldn't ignore. Things had changed, long before I even noticed. But what did that even mean? What was she really telling me? I stared at her, my thoughts racing. Changed? What do you mean, changed? My voice sounded strange, distant, like I wasn't even in control of it. I wanted to yell, to demand answers, but I didn't. I couldn't. Vera sighed, stepping away from me and sitting on the edge of the desk. Her hands fidgeted with the hem of her shirt, her gaze avoiding mine. She looked tired, almost defeated. For a brief second, I wondered if she was going to apologize, if she was going to admit everything and beg for forgiveness. But she didn't. I didn't plan for this to happen, she began, her voice softer now, more fragile. I never wanted to hurt you, Ben, but I've been feeling lost. For a long time. And then I met him. I felt the blood rush to my head. Him? Your boss? David? She nodded, slowly, her eyes finally meeting mine. Yes, it started out innocent, just work stuff. But then, somewhere along the way, it became more. And I couldn't stop it. I tried, but I couldn't. The words hit me like a freight train. I had always known there was something between them, some kind of connection, but I never imagined it would go this far. I felt sick to my stomach, my hands trembling as I clenched them into fists. You've been seeing him? Behind my back? For how long? My voice cracked, and I hated myself for showing weakness. I didn't mean for it to happen like this. It's been a few months, and at first, it was just talking, just connecting. But the more we talked, the more I felt like I was losing something with you, and I didn't know how to fix it. I didn't want to lose you, but I didn't know how to get back what we had. I took a step back, trying to process everything. So you thought the solution was to sleep with him? To be with him? She didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked down at the floor, the shame in her eyes almost too much to bear. It wasn't about that. I never meant for it to go that far. It just happened. One night after work, we were both feeling lost, and one thing led to another. I didn't think it would change everything, but it did. I got caught up in it. I was speechless. I had so many questions, but no words to form them. I had spent so long believing in us, in her. And now, standing in front of me was a woman who had chosen someone else, someone who had never meant to hurt me, but had done it anyway. Why didn't you tell me? I finally managed to ask, my voice quiet, almost defeated. Why didn't you come to me if things were so bad? Why keep it a secret? Her face softened, and she stood up, walking slowly toward me. I didn't know how to fix it, Ben. I didn't know how to tell you that I wasn't happy, that I was confused. And the longer I kept it from you, the harder it became. I was afraid of losing you, but I was also afraid of facing the truth. The weight of her words hit me hard. It wasn't just an affair. It wasn't just about betrayal. It was about the years we'd spent together, the quiet unraveling of everything we'd built. I felt numb, like I was floating outside of myself, watching the entire conversation unfold like a bad dream. I wanted to scream, to throw things, but all I could do was stand there. The silence between us was thick, like we were both drowning in it. I finally spoke, my voice barely above a whisper. I don't know what to say. I don't know how to fix this. Vera took a step closer, her hand reaching out as if she wanted to touch me, but I took a step back. Ben, please. I don't want to lose you. I know I messed up. I know I hurt you, but I want to make things right. I want to fix this. I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time in a long time, I saw a stranger. This wasn't the woman I married. This wasn't the woman I had trusted with everything. I don't know if I can forgive you. I said, my voice steady, but my heart breaking with every word. I don't know if I can ever look at you the same way again. Her eyes filled with tears, and for a moment, I saw the vulnerability I had always loved. But it didn't change anything. Nothing could change what had already happened. The foundation of our life together was cracked beyond repair. I'm sorry, she whispered, her voice trembling. I never meant for it to be this way. I wanted to say something else, but the words caught in my throat. All I could do was turn and walk out, leaving her standing there, alone. I didn't know what came next. I didn't know if there was a way forward. All I knew was that everything had changed, and I didn't know if we could go back. I left the house that night, my feet heavy with each step. Vera's words, her apologies, felt like nothing more than distant echoes in my mind. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think straight. The house, once a home, now felt like a cage, and I needed air. I needed to escape. I drove aimlessly, the streets passing by in a blur. My hands gripped the wheel, knuckles white, as the weight of everything began to settle over me like a suffocating fog. She had said she was confused, lost. But that didn't explain how she could betray me like that. How could she look me in the eyes every day, sharing her life with me, when she was building something with him on the side? I didn't know how long I had been driving, but eventually, I found myself parked outside a quiet bar. The lights inside flickered, and I could hear laughter spilling out the door. I didn't want to be alone, not after everything that had happened. I needed to drown out the noise in my head, even if only for a moment. I walked inside, the cool air hitting my face, and took a seat at the bar. I ordered a drink, anything to numb the ache that had taken root in my chest. I tried to focus on the glass in front of me, but my mind kept going back to Vera, to her face when she told me everything, to the way she had tried to touch me, to fix things, as if we could just pick up where we left off. But I knew it was over. Things couldn't go back to the way they were. The trust was gone, shattered beyond repair. The bartender set my drink down in front of me, and I took a long sip. The burn of the liquor felt like it could erase the pain, at least for a little while. I wasn't looking for answers anymore. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for. But I knew I couldn't go back to that house. Not yet. Not while everything still felt like a lie. Minutes passed, or maybe hours. I lost track of time. My phone buzzed in my pocket, but I ignored it. I didn't want to hear from her. I didn't want her voice in my head anymore. I didn't want to hear the excuses, the apologies. She had made her choice. She had chosen him. It was strange, the way life moved forward when everything inside you stood still. People came and went around me, but I was frozen in place. I couldn't move, couldn't figure out what to do next. And then, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a text from Vera. My stomach twisted. Ben, please. I don't want to lose you. I'll do anything to make it right. Please. The words blurred together as I stared at them. I wanted to scream, to throw my phone across the room, but I didn't. I just sat there, staring at the screen. What was I supposed to say to that? What was left to say? I stared into the glass in front of me, the reflection of the neon lights flickering in the liquid. The silence in the bar felt louder than the noise outside. The weight of the moment pressed down on me, and I felt like I couldn't breathe. Finally, I tapped out a response, my fingers moving almost automatically. It's too late. I didn't know if I believed that, but it was the only thing I could bring myself to say. The truth hit harder than I expected. It wasn't just about her. It was about me. I had been so caught up in her world, in her lies, that I had lost sight of who I was. I sat there for a while longer, my drink now forgotten. What now? What happened next? I didn't know. The following days blurred together. I went through the motions, work, meals, sleep, but everything felt muted, like I was watching my own life from a distance. Vera's texts kept coming, relentless, pleading. But every time I read one, my heart hardened a little more. I couldn't reply. I couldn't even bring myself to open the door when she knocked. I thought I had been prepared for the fallout. After all, she had confessed. But what I didn't anticipate was the suffocating weight of silence. We were both in the same house, but it felt like a prison. The air was thick with the things we didn't say. One night, I heard her sobbing in the kitchen. It wasn't the kind of crying I had heard before. No, this was different. It was raw, desperate. I stood at the doorway, unsure of what to do. A part of me wanted to go to her, to comfort her, but another part of me, the part that was still angry, told me to walk away. I stayed frozen in place, unable to decide. And just as quickly as it had come, the crying stopped. A few minutes later, I heard her footsteps on the stairs, her quiet breathing the only sound in the house. She passed by my door, but she didn't stop. She didn't even look in. I lay there in bed, staring at the ceiling, torn between the man I used to be and the man I had to become. Was I being cruel? Was I denying her a chance to make it right? Or was I simply protecting myself from a second betrayal? That night, I couldn't sleep. My thoughts kept racing, running in circles. I thought about the days when everything felt easy, when Vera and I had been a team. How could it have all turned into this? The next morning, I woke up to a note on the kitchen counter. It was from Vera. I hesitated, staring at the words, but eventually, I picked it up. I'm sorry, Ben. I don't know how to fix this, but I need you to know that I regret everything. I love you. Please, let me show you. Please don't walk away. I couldn't breathe for a moment. Her words echoed in my mind, but the weight of them didn't lift the anger, the betrayal. It only made me feel more lost. I didn't reply. Instead, I folded the note and placed it in my pocket. I had no idea what to do with it, with her, with any of this. But for the first time, I allowed myself to admit something. I wasn't sure if I could forgive her. I spent the next few days trying to convince myself that it was just the anger talking. That maybe, if I gave it time, I could look at Vera and feel something. Anything that resembled the love we once had. But the truth was, I couldn't. Every time I saw her, I saw the woman who had lied to me, who had betrayed everything we built. And it stung worse than I could have ever imagined. The house had turned into a battlefield. We didn't talk. We barely even looked at each other. She had stopped texting, stopped pleading, but I could feel her eyes on me constantly. Every glance, every move she made, was a reminder of what had happened. And every time I felt the weight of her gaze, it made me question everything. One morning, I couldn't take it anymore. The silence was eating me alive, and I was sick of pretending like everything was fine. I needed answers. I needed to know why. Why her boss? Why now? What was it about him that made her willing to risk everything? I found her sitting in the living room, staring out the window like she was waiting for something. I stood in the doorway for a moment, watching her, unsure of what I was about to do. But then the words spilled out before I could stop them. Why him? I asked, my voice rough. What was it about David that made you throw everything away? Was it just a fling, or was it something more? She didn't turn to face me at first, but after a long pause, she slowly stood up, taking a deep breath. It wasn't about him, she said, her voice quiet but steady. It was about me. I didn't know who I was anymore. I didn't know what I wanted. And then, David, he made me feel seen again. Not just as your wife, or someone's partner, but as me. I felt the words hit me like a slap. So it was about you? Not about us, not about our marriage, just about you feeling lost. I couldn't keep the bitterness out of my voice. You didn't think to talk to me about it? You didn't think to come to me when you were confused? Her eyes finally met mine, and for a brief moment, I saw something I hadn't seen in her for a long time. Vulnerability. She swallowed hard before answering. I didn't know how. I didn't want to hurt you, Ben, but I was already hurting. I didn't know how to fix it. I stood there, staring at her, my mind spinning. The excuses, the explanations, they didn't matter anymore. The damage had been done, and it wasn't just about her and David. It was about me, too. I had ignored the signs. I had buried my doubts because I didn't want to face the truth. But now, here I was, standing at the edge of a life I didn't recognize, with nothing but shattered trust between us. You don't get it, do you? I said, my voice a little quieter now. It wasn't just about you. It was about us. About what we were building together. And you threw it all away for what? Some fleeting feeling? She looked down, her face a mixture of regret and sorrow. I didn't mean for it to be like this, Ben. I never meant to hurt you. But now, I don't know if I can fix it. I don't know if you can ever look at me the same way again. I didn't answer her right away. I wasn't sure I could. All the love, all the memories, it felt like they had been swept away in a single moment. I wanted to believe that we could rebuild, that we could find our way back to each other. But something inside me was broken. I didn't know if it could ever be fixed. I need time, I finally said, my voice barely above a whisper. I don't know what this is anymore. But I can't make a decision right now. I just need some space. She nodded, and for a moment, we stood there in silence. No more words were needed. The distance between us had already grown so wide that I wasn't sure anything could bridge it. The days stretched on, each one feeling longer than the last. Tom was moving, but I wasn't. I hadn't made a decision, and I wasn't sure I could. I kept telling myself that the space would help, that things would become clearer. But the longer I stayed in that house, the harder it became to figure out what I really wanted. Vera tried to be patient, but I could see the way she watched me when I came home, the way her eyes flickered with hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, I'd turn around and tell her everything was going to be okay. But I couldn't. I couldn't promise her anything. I spent my nights lying awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering how it all went wrong. Or had I gone wrong? Was I so blind that I missed all the signs? Or was this just the inevitable end of something that was always destined to fail? The truth was, I couldn't forget what I had seen. It didn't matter how much she apologized, how many tears she shed. The image of her and David, together, was burned into my mind. It was like a scar I couldn't erase, no matter how hard I tried. One evening, she asked me to sit down and talk. She said she was ready to do whatever it took to make things right. I had heard those words before, but this time, I didn't feel the same pull. I didn't feel the same sense of connection. The person I once knew seemed so distant now, so far away. We sat across from each other, the silence between us heavier than any conversation we could have had. Her eyes were full of guilt, but also something else, a kind of desperation, the kind you get when you know you've already lost everything, but are still clinging to the hope of a miracle. "I'm sorry, Ben. I know I can't undo what I've done," she said, her voice breaking slightly. "But I love you. I need you to know that. I didn't mean to hurt you. I was lost." I wanted to believe her. I really did. But something inside me had snapped. The trust was gone, and I didn't know if I could ever get it back. "I don't know if I can keep doing this," I whispered, more to myself than to her. "I don't know if I can look at you and pretend that everything's fine." She reached across the table, her hand trembling slightly. "Please, Ben, please don't give up on us. I'll do anything. I'll prove to you that I can change." But I couldn't make her any promises. Not now. Not after everything. I stood up, walked to the door, and turned back to her one last time. "I don't know if I'm the person you think I am anymore," I said. "And I don't think you're the person I thought you were either." I left the house that night, and for the first time, I didn't feel the weight of her presence following me. The silence was final. Weeks passed, and life continued to move forward in its quiet, unrelenting way. But for me, it was different. I had made my decision. The silence, the space I had asked for, it had allowed me to see things more clearly. I had spent too much time looking backward at the wreckage of what was, instead of thinking about what could be. Vera had kept her distance, respecting my need for space. But there was something in the air between us. It wasn't anger anymore. It wasn't just the weight of betrayal. It was something else. Hope. Maybe for the first time in a long time, we were both looking at the same thing, the future. And we both had a choice. One evening, as I sat in the living room, Vera came in, holding a small, crumpled envelope in her hand. She didn't say anything at first, just sat down next to me. Her face was soft, almost timid, like she wasn't sure how to approach me anymore. But then she handed me the envelope. "This is for you," she said quietly. "It's not much, but I thought it might help." I took the envelope, my curiosity piqued. Inside was a simple note, folded neatly. I opened it slowly, reading the words that were written on the page. "I know I can't fix everything, but I promise I'll spend every day showing you that I'm worth trusting again. I love you, Ben. I always will. And I'll prove it, one step at a time." I sat there, staring at the note for what felt like an eternity. The words were simple, but they carried something I hadn't felt in months: sincerity. She wasn't asking for forgiveness. She wasn't demanding anything from me. She was just telling me the truth, offering me the one thing that had been missing, the promise of change. I looked at Vera, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't see the woman who had betrayed me. I saw the woman who was sitting beside me now, vulnerable, honest, willing to fight for us. And in that moment, something shifted inside me. I realized that holding on to the past, holding on to the anger and the pain, wouldn't change anything. But moving forward together, slowly, cautiously, but with hope, could. "I'm not saying it'll be easy," I said, my voice steady. "And I don't know if things will ever be the way they were. But I'm willing to try, if you are." She looked at me, her eyes wide with a mixture of relief and gratitude. "I am. I promise. Every day." And just like that, the weight that had been between us lifted, if only for a moment. We both knew the road ahead wouldn't be without its bumps. We both knew that trust takes time to rebuild. But we had the one thing that mattered, a chance. A chance to start over, to grow together, to heal. As I took her hand, a small smile crept across my face. It wasn't a perfect solution, but it was ours. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt a sense of peace. We had both been lost, but now, we had found our way back to each other.